Consult God's instruction and the testimony of warning. If anyone does not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they are famished, they will become enraged, and looking upward will curse their king and their God. Then they will look toward the earth and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who were in distress. In the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the future, he will honor Galilee of the nations, by way of the sea, beyond the Jordan. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. So, over the last 3 weeks, we have watched the plan of God unfold through the Old Testament. We watched as sin entered the world through Adam and Eve, and then evil became so rampant that God destroyed the earth with a flood. Then we watched the faithful remnant of Noah and then Abraham as they strived to maintain relationship with God through the building of altars and sacrifices and obedience. And I don't know about you, but a couple weeks ago, listening to Matt, I just wrung my hands thinking about Adam and Eve and that first experience with shame after making the choice to disobey God for the first time. And I just pictured, what if it were me, being the one escorted from the garden of perfection and now having to live with this reality, this new reality of death and pain and separation from God. And the next week, I thought about Noah and the beauty of being spared, of all the people in the world being the ones that were saved. But I also thought, what would it be like to be the ones who were not on the boat, maybe clawing at the doors of it as water started to fill the earth and started to rise, and not being able to get in. And last week, listening to Aaron, I thought about Abraham, and I thought about this God who would ask him to sacrifice his only son, and ask him not only to consider this, but to get as far as to raise the knife before stopping it. And the thing is, God's word is not a fairy tale book. This stuff is hard. And we can't ignore the hard. Because if we ignore the hard parts, we'll miss the gospel. And if we miss the gospel, then we'll miss the very glory of God. And so you know what? We need Christmas this year. You need it. I need it. But we need to experience it fully. And in order for us to do that, we have to get our hearts around the why. Why is it so significant? And the depth of that why is found in the hard stuff. Which is why we have wanted to take this month of November throughout this I Did Not See Him Coming series to hit these key points in the Old Testament. So just to visualize this a little better, can everybody see this light? Which is kind of miraculous. Despite all the lights that are blinding me right now, you can still see it. Awesome. Can we turn off all the lights in the room just for a second? Let your eyes adjust. Let the darkness just kind of hit you. So having seen the dark, can you see this light more or less clearly than you did when the lights were on? More. Okay. You bring the lights back on. It's an amazing thing when you actually get to see light pierce through darkness. That's when you can see light the most clearly. In the same way, the more clearly we see the reality of sin, the more brilliantly we experience the impact of the Savior. Because God didn't just send us a messenger down here to be like, you're doing great, guys. Love you. I just wanted to tell you, glow up. You're getting better. It's great. I'm so proud of you. He didn't just send us a message. He sent us a Messiah who was on a mission to save us from ourselves. And I just really want to make sure that we use our time that we have together today to just really dig in and grasp that before we launch into our Christmas series next week. Because once you've grasped the reality of this, that's when Christmas music stops annoying you and finally starts to choke you up. That's when you start living different. That's when things start healing. That's when lives start changing. That is how shepherds end up bowing to a baby in a manger in Bethlehem. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. So let's just pray for a minute. Bow your heads. God, we just want to open our hearts to receive your word today. It's a strange thing. We think of Christmas, we think of joy, we think of beauty, we think of excitement, Lord. But all of that had to be preceded by just some really hard truths, God, for us to really grasp what you've done. And so I pray that we would receive those well. I pray that we would be open to that today. That we would magnify you even more greatly because we're able to go deep into your love today through your truth of your word. So I just pray that your Holy Spirit would be in this place, that we would be listening to what you have to say. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I have a theory that many of you actually have a much greater knowledge of even the history of Christmas than you think you do. And it is because of what so many of you have been debating on Facebook for the last 2 weeks, and it's Christmas music. So we're after Thanksgiving now, so hopefully you all can make your peace. Those of you who don't like it, you can make your peace with the fact that it's going to be in your car, it's going to be in the store, it's going to be played by your kids, it's going to be everywhere. But we hear this same music every single year. And this is the power of music and of worship. It can't replace contemplative silence and the study of God's word, but what music does is it can make truths so accessible to us so quickly because it's been put to this melody that's stuck in our heads. And so every year you've been hearing these songs, and there are some goosebump-worthy lyrics tucked into these songs we hear every year. And so I just want to kind of call upon those to kind of help us as we're working through this today. And I'm praying that after today, some of these songs you will never hear the same again, that you'll let them really impact you. So we'll play a little bit of Name That Tune as we go, so it'll be fun. I can see you're excited. Let's start with this one. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. What song does this line come from? Nice, okay, so we've got Christmas fans, music fans over here, maybe not so much over here, that's all right. This is one of my favorite lyrics ever written, like not just Christmas music, I mean ever, because to me, the whole package of the gospel is in these two lines. And when we sing that second line, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth, that line feels so good and so powerful because it delivers us this hope that was missing in the first line. We experience gratitude because we've been filled from previously being empty. And so it's just such a beautiful picture. This last Thursday, Blake and I celebrated our very first Thanksgiving together as a married couple. Yes, we're very cute. Thank you. So we did our little mini Thanksgiving parade. You know, we went to his parents first, and then we went to my parents. And then, you know, they're kind of, people tend to have Thanksgiving kind of around the same time. There's not anybody having like a Thanksgiving breakfast, so you have this buffer time. You just kind of like do a whole meal, and then you go do a whole other meal. And so that's what we did. And if you're anything like me, you get up on Thanksgiving morning and you're like, okay, I need to make room in myself for how much food is about to go in. So you don't eat, you don't think about food, and maybe like if you're a food conscious person, this is your cheat day, so you're like really gearing up, like you are ready. And so we finally, you know, it's just been hours of just kind of thinking about it and imagining what the stuffing's gonna look like and all that stuff. And so we get to Blake's parents' house, and of course my mother-in-law just has this beautiful like marriage supper of the lamb level collection of food that we are just about to go crazy on. And so I finally get this plate, and it is just like full, and I just go to town. I did a great job. I cleared it. And then I realized I have another dinner to go to after this. And so I start to make this pact in myself, like, I need to calm down. I'm going to spend the rest of the time here just relaxing and letting this work so I don't end up being that person at the next meal that doesn't eat anything and just sits at the table like a weirdo. So as I'm having this inner dialogue with myself, my mother-in-law leans over and goes, "You have to try the cheesecake." And I was like, you know what? I do. I do need to try the cheesecake. So I did that, and so we had about a 15-minute buffer time after leaving this house, and now there's coming another meal, and of course we walk in, and it's beautiful, and it's all the amazing foods I had been anticipating this whole day. It's the same thing. It's so lovely. It's such a great time. Same collection of people, same collection of food, but this time, while I loved and appreciated it, it did not have the opportunity to satisfy me the way the first meal did when I was so hungry. And so in the same way, when we do not allow ourselves to be aware of our hunger for a Savior, we rob the gospel of its opportunity to satisfy us. Matthew chapter 5 says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied." Ever since the garden, mankind has had this desperation for righteousness and relationship with God, and the earth itself has felt it. And Romans 6:23 says that the price of sin is death, right? So ever since the fall, things have been dying and decaying and destroying other things, and this is what we've been born into. This is what our sin does to us. It brings this shame, and it makes us feel unworthy, and it steals from us. It leaves this emptiness. And so what's beautiful about this is when we allow that holy conviction to set in, we become aware of the emptiness. And we're going to do one of two things. We're going to sense our need for help. We're going to let ourselves feel that hunger and turn away from these things that have been stealing and emptying us, and we're going to come to this table that God has prepared with this hope that will satisfy us. Or, instead of doing that, we will self-soothe. We will keep going back to ungodly relationships and sexual sin. We will keep tearing people down. We will keep going into environments that we should not be in. We will keep holding on to our chains and addictions. We will keep ourselves in this temporary, counterfeit sense of satisfaction. So then we're able to see what God has offered to us, and we might appreciate it. We might even be able to bring ourselves to sit at the table for a while. But we're not hungry for it. We can't swallow it. And we will never really know just how good it is. And that is the epitome of sin. Knowingly living in violation of the design, will, and spirit of God is sin. Rejecting God's table of goodness for lesser things is sin. And I know I keep saying this word sin, and we're all like, would she stop? It is so uncomfortable. And it feels harsh on us, but my whole point here is that's okay. It's exactly the point. We can address the reality that we are weak and we are sinners. In fact, we absolutely have to address this because it's at this juncture that the beauty of the gospel steps in. God said to Israel through the prophet Jeremiah, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord." So he says, "This is the covenant I will make with the people of Israel after that time, declares the Lord. I will put my law in their minds, and I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, 'Know the Lord,' because they will all know me, from least to greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their wickedness and remember their sins no more. That is who God is. He forgives, he renews, and especially under this new covenant, we are really experiencing that. But under the law, before God presented this new covenant he's talking about here in Jeremiah, this was really hard. The only way for God's people to receive that forgiveness and maintain a relationship with God was through priests and sacrifices and really serious procedures, because they had to keep themselves clean to be in his presence, to experience his holiness. And it was strict. It was rigorous. It was completely dependent on their own faithfulness and obedience. Now, could you imagine if our holiness was dependent completely on us? It sounds impossible, right? And it was. It was crushing. The people just couldn't live up to it. And so it created this kind of pull and tug, right, relationship between God and Israel. And we really see this throughout the book of Isaiah. We're going to look at some scriptures there today. Because throughout the time when God called Isaiah to prophesy, so this would have been after Noah, after Abraham, after Moses, even after David and Solomon, right? So years later, God calls Isaiah to prophesy to the people of Judah. And they experience this terrifying threat during this time of being overtaken by Assyria. They end up being exiled to Babylon, and they're in this time when it was very difficult to see how God could possibly be on their side or be able to save them because of just all the terror around them. So they became very fearful and rebellious. And so God basically sends Isaiah, this prophet, to chase these people down and hold them accountable to keep holding on to God. But they just keep failing at this over and over throughout the years. And throughout the book, you can really see these kind of arguments God gets in with his people through the prophet. And one of these is in chapter 57. God says, "Whom have you dreaded and feared, that you have not been true to me, and have neither remembered me nor taken this to heart? Is it not because I have been long silent that you do not fear me? I will expose your righteousness and your works, and they will not benefit you. When you cry out for help, let your collection of idols save you. The wind will carry all of them off. A mere breath will blow them away." And what I love about Scripture is any time that you see God get angry like this, you know that there is a but coming. He always makes a way, because he knows this isn't working. He knew before the foundation of the world that if salvation was left in the hands of the people, they would never be able to save themselves. And so he asks them to hold on to these promises he's about to make about what he will do. So he says, "But whoever takes refuge in me will inherit the land and possess my holy mountain. And it will be said, build up, prepare the road, remove obstacles out of the way of my people. For this is what the high and exalted one says, he who lives forever, whose name is holy. I live in a high and holy place," he says, "but also with the one who is contrite and lowly in spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and revive the heart of the contrite. I will not accuse them forever, nor will I always be angry, because then they would faint away because of me, the very people I have created. I was enraged by their sinful greed. I punished them and hid my face in anger, yet they kept on in their willful ways." But he says, "I have seen their ways, but I will heal them. I will guide them and restore comfort to Israel's mourners, creating praise on their lips. Peace, peace to those far and near, says the Lord, and I will hear them." And there it is. That's the perfect picture of what we just talked about. Long lay the world in sin and error, pining. That's where they are. Till he appeared, and the soul felt its worth. See, this tribe, Judah, who all this is being spoken to, they are the lineage of Abraham that Aaron talked about last week. Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob had Judah. And this audience, this is his tribe hundreds of years later that Isaiah is speaking to. And they are struggling. They are sinning, they are pining, longing for help from God. But this is the lineage that God promised would be a great nation, that he would bring the Messiah from. So let's check out this song lyric. O come thou rod of Jesse, free, thine own from Satan's tyranny. From depths of hell thy people save, and give them victory o'er the grave. What song is this from? Nice. Okay, this side's coming to play now, guys. Are you paying attention? This was a little bit of an easy one, though, because our worship team just did such a beautiful job really presenting this song to us. And I love this because it's such a powerful depiction of the desperation of Israel as they cried out for God to make good on these promises he made to them. Isaiah 11 says, a shoot will come from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. The Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord. So Isaiah prophesied that this hope, this person that would have the Spirit of the Lord would be a branch extending from Jesse's family. Now remember, Jesse was King David's dad, so we're still following this line of Judah here. And all of this is written hundreds of years before the Messiah would appear. Another prophecy from Isaiah says, for to us a child is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. And he will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Now, to a people in constant conflict, constant struggle, constantly being overtaken by enemies, you've got to understand, these are groundbreaking promises. He's saying this king, God, man is coming. This king who's going to bring peace and justice and reign in righteousness forever. Like, what? And you've got to understand, at the time when Isaiah was bringing this word to the people, this would have been unfathomable. Israel is facing enemies on every side, armies bigger than theirs, kings more powerful than theirs. They did not want to wait on the Lord to rescue them. They craved earthly security now and tried to satisfy themselves through their own rulers and strategies. And so that's what they did. They would hear prophecies like this and, of course, expect God to fulfill them like now. And then they'd kind of wait, and they'd wait, and then it wouldn't happen, so they'd go right back to depending on themselves. And I just wish they could have understood this holy opportunity that they had been given. This anointed space, the waiting that we talked about last week. This is the space where we learn to truly hunger for God and his righteousness. This is where we use our faith to say, God, you satisfy me, before we've ever even laid eyes on the promise. And the people of Israel couldn't understand that God had fashioned a salvation beyond their current situation, their current battle. They didn't comprehend that when he said the government will be on his shoulder, it wasn't to rectify their current political climate. They couldn't grasp that when he promised peace, it wasn't just to get their current enemies to leave them alone. They didn't get that this was a rescue mission far beyond themselves, and that when God promised a king, he did not just promise a king for Israel, but a king for the broken, who would go to the ends of the earth to tell anyone who would listen, I made a place for you forever. A kingdom for you forever. now the Lord says, he who formed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring back Jacob to him and gather Israel to himself. So this is Isaiah saying this. For I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has been my strength. God says, it is too small a thing for you to be my servant and restore the tribes of Jacob and bring back those of Israel I have kept. He said, that's too small a thing. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. And that word Gentile means everybody else. So everybody who's not a Jew, not an Israelite, not of the tribes of Jacob, not in this specific audience being written to. God said to Isaiah and to the tribe of Judah, it's too small a thing for you to just restore Israel. I want to rescue the world. And to a nation of people who had been through the flood, through the wilderness, through slavery and wars and unrest, God is saying, wait for salvation. Now he gave them a covenant and a law and promises to get them through the waiting, but he needed them to hold on. And they couldn't see it yet. But in asking them to wait, he was saying, I'm going to save you like I did Noah. There are going to be some people outside the boat. And I want to go get them this time. Hundreds of years from now, there's going to be this distant land called the United States of America. And in that, there's going to be this other land kind of shaped like a mitten called Michigan. And in the southeast corner, there's this little town called Woodhaven. And there are going to be people there. And I want to rescue them too. And I pray, though the Israelites couldn't possibly know that and see what God was doing, we can see this picture. And I pray that we can see that God wants to use us to do something so much bigger than ourselves. It is much too small a calling, and salvation is much too great a thing for it to end right here with us. We have to take it, and we have to run with it, and we have to share it. Because God aligned a right moment at the right time in history to fulfill the law and prophets, and not only the longing hearts of the Jews, but to all the world who is longing for him. To fulfill the law and prophets, to a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. This is kind of a trick question. What song is this from? King of Kings. I think the worship team's sitting over here, so you guys had a little bit of help. We just sang that song tonight, or this morning. It's so powerful. Isaiah 7, another prophecy from him. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. And Emmanuel literally means God with us. And so, right now, as we just step in our minds into this little town called Bethlehem, and we see maybe this barn-looking thing, and there's a young man and a young woman there, and they're kneeling. There's this manger where you would expect food for animals to go, sitting here in the middle of them, but there's this baby there. And they're all surrounded by animals and hay because there was no room for them anywhere else. So we just picture, as we picture, this little, scared, unwanted family. I just want to look at one more song lyric today. Mild he lays his glory by, born that man no more may die. Anyone know where this comes from? Hark the herald angels sing. You guys did way better than last hour on that. Good job. This is so powerful as we picture them here with Jesus in the manger. Because do you get that he laid aside his glory? The unfathomable splendor and majesty of the only begotten Son of God, the light of all heaven and earth. All creation screams his name with its very existence. Darkness flees from his presence, and angels bow at his feet. He is the one who is perfection and completeness. He's the infinite everything who has need for nothing. And yet, something managed to capture his heart. Something that had fallen so far that he had to step down from his throne to reach it. The King of glory set aside his due honor and dignity and bowed himself to the lowest earth, born in a manger, unnoticed by all but a few. The greatest became the least. He became a child to become a man, to become a sacrifice. And he gave himself, all of himself, fully and freely, so that he could come down here and personally meet the love of his life. You. So justice is far from us, and righteousness does not reach us. We look for light, but all is darkness. We look for brightness, but we walk in deep shadows. Like the blind, we grope along the wall, feeling our way like people without eyes. At midday, we stumble as if it were twilight. Among the strong, we are like the dead. But God saw that there was no one. And he was appalled that there was no one to intervene. So his own arm achieved salvation for him, and his own righteousness sustained him. He put on righteousness as his breastplate and the helmet of salvation on his head. He put on the garments of vengeance and wrapped himself in zeal as a cloak. Do you see what's happening here? The king just took off his crown and put on battle armor so that he could come here and fight for you. He reached and reached and reached for you and wouldn't stop until his hands were scarred. Because when our humanity couldn't possibly become his glory became our humanity. And so here he was, God in person, as a baby, in a manger, this hero, rescuer, king, light of the world. I've intentionally not said his name this entire message because I want him, this King of glory, to reintroduce himself to you today. So if you all just close your eyes. I'm going to count to 3, and together we're just going to say that wonderful, beautiful name, picturing all that he is and all that he wants to say to you today. Just take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. Jesus. Jesus. He put his glory down and came all this way for you. So let's put our pride down and go all the way for him. Don't keep playing around with sin, the thing that broke the world, in the first place. Let's not be satisfied in anything less than him. Let's be hungry for more today. And if you need to get free, if you need to get whole, if you're willing to admit that you need rescued, there is space here at these altars for you today. Jesus is personally calling you out, and he aligned all of history, do you understand, so that you could be his. And he's still, right now, today, got his battle armor on, and he is still on that mission to save the world. So let it start with you. right here, right now, right where you are. Will you stand with me? Let's pray. God, we feel your presence in here. These sweet people have spoken your name. And you heard faith in this room. We are desperate for you. And for those who are battling anxiety and depression, who struggled to get out of bed and come here today, you are still that great rescuer. We're headed into Christmas season. It always comes with it a wave of difficulty for so many people, waves of grief. But I pray that you'd restore joy today. I pray that the burdens and the weariness that are in this room, I pray that they would have courage to just drag those to these altars and bow and kneel and worship you. Let you reignite that flame of their first love. Let us receive that full joy of what is just a wonderful time of year. We celebrate that you came. You put on the most inconspicuous battle armor. You wrapped yourself in flesh, became like us, so that we could become like you. So help us just to surrender and communicate well with you in these moments we have together. In Jesus' name.